we're back on Sportsman Radio. I'm your host, Chris Schanfeld, and I am now joined by a former guest of the show. He is a former defensive end in the NFL, Mr. Joe Tafoya. Joe, how's it going?
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me back on, man. Doing well. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. And, Joe, I want to start this conversation off by talking a little bit about the Chicago Bears. As we know, it was Wednesday. Some big news broke out. The Bears announced that they will not be bringing back middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears for 13 seasons, the leader of the Bears for the last 13 seasons, and Brian Urlacher. How did you take that news?
I was really disappointed. Number one, because I played with Brian and I know him, and he's a great person, great teammate, and he's also one of those standout players for the NFL, and he represents the league, he represents himself, and he represents the Bears very well. So for them to not come to an agreement on his final hurrah is disappointing. I was telling some friends of mine that, back in the days of the Gladiators, a guy like him, if he were part of your Gladiator organization, you'd build marble monuments after the guy. I mean, he's just one of those foundational type people that the whole city's proud of, and the whole state can be proud to have them as his own. And it's just disappointing that they couldn't come to an agreement. Love to see Brian retire as a Bear, but quite often in the NFL, we know that, it's a business, and this is an unfortunate reality. All things have to come to an end when you're a football player.
Yeah, and just a moment ago, I was talking with Carmen DeFalco from the Carmen and Yurko show from ESPN 1000 here in Chicago, and I told him that I was really surprised by this move because of how long it took for the Bears to announce this. I mean, it seemed like they're negotiating a contract with Brian for a while now, and for their final for their final offer to be a 1-year, $2 million contract, I was pretty surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, in Brian's words, he says that they were really just trying to save face on behalf of the city and the organization, and there may be some truth to that by them saying they've done their diligence and here's what they can offer the guy. But at the same time, it puts Brian in a precarious position because here he can't put himself out in the free market when all of the everybody's got money to spend, and he's somewhat being loyal to the organization, although we don't know what really is true and what isn't anymore. But yeah, it was an interesting move by the Bears to kind of wait this long, and then very quickly they snapped up DJ Williams.
Yeah. DJ Williams signed a contract with the Bears on Friday, 1-year deal. Not a bad move, but Joe, can you imagine Brian Urlacher in any other NFL uniform?
It's going to be strange, man. It's going to be really, really strange. He's kind of the face of that team, face of the organization, the face of the Bears for the last several years. If he walks into the stadium wearing number 54 for the Vikings or for the Arizona Cardinals, who knows? Who knows what I think the crowd would probably cheer for him still, but it's going to be strange.
Yeah, and last thing about Brian Urlacher, Joe, and that is, what is your favorite moment of, being around Brian Urlacher? What is your favorite moment of Brian Urlacher with the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, so it had to be during practice one time. I was screwing up in practice. I screwed up the same play twice as a rookie, and I was in the huddle with Urlacher, and he pulled me aside and he goes, Big time, what are you doing? Get your shit together. And I'll never forget that because it was a guy that, he wasn't too far into his career, but the team looked at him as one of their, premier players. He had just won Rookie of the Year, and he was, he was the man over there in Chicago already established. And he was kind of pulling me aside. I was just some rookie nobody and telling me to get it together. I'll never forget it.
Now, Joe, as we know, you have some history with the Seattle Seahawks. You're around the team a lot nowadays, and I know there isn't any rumors about it, but I'm sure any team would love the experience that Brian Urlacher brings to a team. Can you imagine Brian Urlacher with the Seattle Seahawks and the monster defense Seattle already has?
I posted a tweet the other day about Dear Seahawks, please bring in Brian Urlacher so he can win the 2013 Super Bowl and end his career correctly. And I tell you what, the responses that I got all across the board, there were some people that were, really happy to hear that suggestion come out. There were some people that were really upset with it. And at the end of the day, none of us are going to have the opportunity to make that decision. So all the people on Twitter that think that they're running an NFL team, they're not. But I got to tell you, if Brian Urlacher made his way over to Seattle, the addition that he would bring would probably be his leadership in the locker room more so than what he can put out on the field, because we've got some really young and talented linebackers here at the Seahawks organization that I don't know if they're going anywhere. But just to have a guy like Brian on the team and really represent the Seahawks organization in his kind of his final go-around, I would personally love it. That would be a great moment for Joe Tafoya, just because I'm such a Brian Urlacher and Seahawks fan. But I'm not sure that everybody would really appreciate that move. What's your opinion?
I honestly think, I don't see Brian Urlacher going to Seattle. I think Brian Urlacher, like you said, he'll be a great addition to any team just with the experience he brings and the leadership he brings. I think that'll help out any team in the NFL.
Right, agreed. Yeah. And it was interesting when the Bears picked up DJ Williams, because in the past he's been kind of a vocal leader, which is now what is missing in the middle of that defense. But then he was suspended twice, and some of that kind of went away, and now he's going to try and, recreate himself in the Bears organization. It'd be really interesting to see what happens at that position.
Yeah, it's going to be so different just to see another leader of that defense, whether it's going to be DJ Williams or, or it'll continue to be Julius Peppers, Lance Briggs. Anyways, Brian Urlacher is out of Chicago, and I'm still pretty shocked by that move.
Yeah, I keep going back to my Twitter and all my different social media feeds to see if anything else has happened, to see if the Bears have come to their senses and done the right thing, but that's a business.
Now, Joe, last question about the Chicago Bears, and that is, last time I talked to you, I believe it was maybe the day after, or maybe the day of the firing of Lovie Smith. What are your thoughts on the new head coach that the Bears brought in from the CFL, the Montreal Alouettes, Coach Mark Trestman?
It's an interesting move by the Bears organization. I've always known that Emery is a very calculated person, and I think I mentioned that last time. But Trestman has a long history. Most people don't know much about the CFL, but my business partner actually played with Trestman, and the one thing he said was that he's going to spend a lot of time at the quarterback position. Now, in the CFL, the all-time stats leader for quarterback is his former understudy. I forget his name. He's a Mexican guy, but he's the all-time stats leader under Trestman for the CFL, and you know that to be a passing league. So I think that it's an interesting move on behalf of the Bears, and I think that the NFL is going to get a chance to really figure out who Mark Trestman is.
And Joe, switching gears here now. Obviously, you know a lot about the Seattle Seahawks. You're around the team right now nowadays, and they've already made a lot of moves during the offseason, mainly with the addition of trading for Percy Harvin, wide receiver from the Minnesota Vikings. What were your thoughts when you heard about that move? I mean, the whole NFL was in shock. I did not see it coming.
No, nobody saw it coming. It came out of the blue. The story in town is that the GM wanted nothing to do with it. John Schneider said absolutely not. When Carroll and the staff brought it to the table, no way, it's not going to happen. Carroll managed to convince him that it was the right move, and here we go. Now we have one of the most dangerous weapons in all of the NFL in Percy Harvin. And from what I understand, he wasn't all that happy at Minnesota with his playing time or with the way they were coaching him, whatever it may have been. But the rumor inside of the Seahawks organization is that he is excited, ecstatic about being in the Seahawks uniform.
And I cannot blame him just from seeing the way the Seahawks performed last season under rookie quarterback Russell Wilson. And then the defense, man. That defense was the story of last season, really. One of the highest-ranked defenses last season. Really surprised many people. I didn't see the Seahawks winning more than 7 games entering last season. They went on to the playoffs. Unfortunately, they fell short against the Atlanta Falcons. Overall, what did you think about the Seattle Seahawks season?
I thought it was a huge success for the Seahawks organization and for the Pacific Northwest in general, with an addition of a young, exciting group of guys. We had Russell Wilson, who was virtually unknown in the draft, but now is a sensation up here in the Northwest and across the NFL.
A Pro Bowler.
We have Bobby Wagner, who is a linebacker that was one of the finalists for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, the Seahawks staff did a really nice job in the last few draft classes. Richard Sherman is another product of the John Schneider, Pete Carroll recruiting classes. And I'll tell you what, to make a move for Percy Harvin says a lot. And then we turn around and make 2 more moves on the defensive side of the ball that are also very interesting.
Yeah, and, one more thing about Percy Harvin, Joe, and that is, what exactly can Percy Harvin bring to this offense? I mean, he seems like he could do everything. I heard Pete Carroll tried recruiting him to USC when Carroll was the coach of USC, so it's pretty funny that he got him to Seattle. We've seen Percy Harvin, play wide receiver most of the time. We could see him play running back. He's a great special teams player, and with the weapons the Seahawks already have in Sidney Rice, Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, what exactly does Percy Harvin bring to the Seattle Seahawks team?
He's such a dynamic player, and I think that when you're the Seahawks and you have options, and all of those options are good, that's a recipe for success. Now, Pete Carroll's going to do his best job in managing all those personalities and how to get the balls to everybody, so we don't worry about that dynamic. What we are very curious to see is what type of offensive implementation they're going to use this year. Is it more of a run and shoot? Are we going to hand the ball off to beast mode and let him penetrate for a little while and then do some bubble screens? I mean, really, with a guy like Percy Harvin, you just want the ball in his hands. We actually released our Pro Bowl kick returner, Leon Washington, picked up immediately by the Patriots because he's a fabulous return talent. And those guys are really hard to come by. We did so because there's an anticipation of Percy Harvin being on the kickoff return as well. So anytime you get a chance to get the ball in his hands, you're going to do that. But he's only one weapon. I mean, there's a lot of offensive firepower going on here with the Seahawks, and this is an exciting time to be a Seahawks fan.
Yeah, it really is. And, Joe, the NFL draft is coming up very soon, next month. Is there anybody particular or any position that you would like to see the Seattle Seahawks draft?
I'd like to see us pick up some young, talented, athletic offensive linemen. And there's not one person specifically that I would like to see them pick up, but if they do a good job in supplementing who we have already, I'd like to see them pick up a young, talented pulling guard, or maybe a center to pick up in the draft. I mean, those guys are hard to come by later on because we don't have a first-round draft pick. We got Percy Harvin instead. But I think when you are building the type of offense you're building, you can't use those fundamental building blocks that can't move. I'm not saying that any of the guys that we have now aren't able to move, but we definitely want to bring in some guys that have good feet, that are able to run block, at the same time get out on the bubble screen those are the types of guys that I'm looking for from GM.
One offensive lineman that I absolutely love that the Seattle Seahawks have is, I believe his name is John Moffitt. I know I've heard so much about him on Mike Robinson's show, the Real Rob Report. Joe, is there any time soon we'll see you on Mike Robinson's show?
You never know when I'll show up, man. I might end up showing up on his show, or I might end up showing up on mine. Who knows?
Hey, Joe, I really appreciate
you. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Joe, I really appreciate your time today, man. Before I let you go, why don't you tell us more about Jump It Media?
Yeah, so over the last 4 years, I've been really studying influence, and there's a need in the marketplace right now for somebody to kind of take over this position of influencer marketing. I work with a lot of high-profile people, athletes, entertainers, celebrities, and basically what we do is we find ways to increase their profile if need be, or we leverage their influence to make them money. So I'm kind of in between the agent and the media.
All right, and I know you guys are on Twitter at JumpItMedia. Is it jumpitmedia.com as well?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem, Joe. It's always a pleasure to talk NFL with you, man, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks. Congratulations to you, too. I hear you've been accepted to Columbia University.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate it. Really looking forward to it.
Thanks.
All right. Talk to you soon, man.
Take care.
Take care.